Coming up on Network Africa, several students abducted by armed men from a Catholic school in Niger State, central Nigeria, the second mass school kidnapping this week. World leaders of the G20 economies begin to arrive Johannesburg for the first ever G20 summit in South Africa. U.S. attendance is still unsure. Plus, United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF, warns millions of children globally live in poverty, missing out on nutrition and sanitation. Hello and welcome to the program. It's the last episode for the week. I'm Layo Olarinde. We begin here in Nigeria. It appears the disturbing trend of recent abductions may not be abating anytime soon, as armed terrorists struck St. Mary's private Catholic secondary school in Papiri, Agwara local government area of Niger State in the early hours of today, abducting several students. Local sources report the assailants invaded between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., overwhelming the school's security and gaining access to the hostel. The exact number of students taken remains unconfirmed. According to a group, the Agwara reformers, the attackers arrived in large numbers, riding over 60 motorcycles and a van, targeting the Catholic boarding school in the dead of night. During the assault, the school's gateman was shot but survived, sustaining serious injuries, but students and teachers were, however, forcibly taken away. Police Public Relations Officer Wasiu Abiodun said tactical police units supported by military and other security forces have been deployed. Extensive search operations are ongoing in surrounding forests to secure the safe release of the abducted students. As the Commissioner of Police, Adamu Elman, reaffirmed the command's resolve to ensure the students' safe return. In the meantime, bandits who abducted 38 worshippers at the Christ Apostolic Church in Eruku, Kwara State, are reported to be demanding 100 million naira ransom per victim. Families report kidnappers contacting relatives, grouping victims and negotiating their ransoms. Community leader Olusegun Olukotun, whose 4 relatives were among the abducted, said he and one family member escaped the attack at around 6:06 p.m. through a church window. According to Mr. Olukotun, the kidnappers are organizing victims by family and contacting relatives, though some have yet to receive any calls. Well, CAC Secretary Josiah Agbabiaka confirmed that abductors are using victims' phones to demand ransom, with the first group of 11 people reportedly asked to pay 100 million naira each. More stories from Nigeria. The sentencing of the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, has been convicted on terrorism charges and sentenced to life imprisonment by the Federal High Court in Abuja. In delivering the judgment, the trial judge, Justice James Omotosho, sentenced him to life imprisonment on counts 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 of the 7-count charge brought against him by the Department of State Services.
Heavy security presence outside the Federal High Court, Abuja, is indicative of the magnitude of the case at hand. Inside the court, years of legal battle is culminating to the judgment in the trial of the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu. The defendant is in the court with his friends and family ahead of the commencement of the proceeding.
You may see that place.
At the beginning of the hearing, the judge dismissed 3 fresh motions filed by Kanu for lacking merit. Kanu had argued that the court could not proceed with the judgment for the day because he was yet to file his final written address. Things quickly degenerated as Kanu accused the judge of being biased, claiming that he did not know the law.
This is a court of law. I'm under trial. I'm under trial. I have to speak. I'm under trial and I have to speak. Listen to me. Listen to me, please. I'm under trial. I'm under trial.
Please use the microphone.
I'm under trial. And I must address
Please,
wait.
can you listen to me?
No, listen to me. Please. The judge must listen to me. No, wait. Wait. I'm asking a very simple question. No, wait. Please, look, this is Supreme Court. Wait, hold on. This Supreme Court here. Hold on a second. I said, hold on. May you please, your lordship?
Please.
Following the outburst, Justice Omotosho ordered his removal from the courtroom and subsequently suspended the proceeding for a while.
Any judgment, let it be on record. Any judgment given in this court is rubbish. Ask him where is the law. Ask Omotosho, where is the law?
They resumed the hearing after the recess, which lasted less than 5 minutes. The trial judge continued the judgment with Kanu in absentia.
Since 2015, I hold without hesitation.
The judge held that the threats of violence and killings, including the declaration of sit at home in Nigeria's southeast region in the defendant's broadcasts, constituted acts of terrorism. He was subsequently found guilty and convicted on counts 1 and 2.
I called my noble lord M.L. Gabbard, JSC.
He was also found guilty and convicted for belonging to IPOB, which had been proscribed, and its affiliate, the Eastern Security Network.
We are disengaged to act as legal consultants.
Justice Omotosho held that his many broadcasts incited his followers to violence, which resulted in the killing of security personnel and the destruction of properties, including police stations.
The defendant was not on the manifest.
While convicting Kanu on all the 7 counts charges, the judge held that the prosecution had sufficient credible evidence to establish a case against him. He added that the court had no option than to believe the evidence of the prosecution, since the defendant failed to enter his defense but chose to gamble by resting his case on that of the prosecution.
This, in the case of Federal Republic of Nigeria versus Nnamdi.
Before the sentencing, the prosecution counsel asked the court to pass a death sentence on the defendant.
Prescribed for the offenses in counts 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 is death penalty.
However, a member of the House of Representatives pleaded for clemency.
I plead for mercy. I plead for clemency, and I appeal for peace and for stability of not just the Southeast, but as well as Nigeria.
The justice subsequently sentenced him to life imprisonment on counts 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6.
There are instances where a person commits
He was sentenced to 20 years imprisonment without an option of fine for counts 3, which relates to the offense of belonging to a proscribed terrorist group.
restrictions, authorizations.
For count 7, which borders on his unlawful importation of a radio transmitter for the purpose of furthering the activities of Radio Biafra, which was not registered in Nigeria, the judge sentenced him to 5 years imprisonment without an option of fine.
Defining judicial power and authority or jurisdiction on court.
The judge noted that Kanu had been unruly all through the trial and said the law allowed the courts to sentence him to death for the terrorism offenses, but being a Christian, he chose to be merciful to the defendant.
By pronouncement, take away.
Justice James Omotosho further ordered that Nnamdi Kanu be kept in a protective custody in any part of the country, but not in Kuje Prison, Abuja, and that the radio transmitter be forfeited to the federal government.
We're in South Africa now, where world leaders have started arriving in Johannesburg ahead of the G20 summit this weekend. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Brazil's President Lula Inácio da Silva, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi are some of the leaders among the 20 biggest economies who have touched down. Well, one notable absence expected at this summit is US President Donald Trump, who had long decided not to attend over widely discredited claims that white people are being persecuted in the country. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has criticized the US for boycotting the conference, making a thinly veiled swipe at the US president, saying no country can be allowed to bully another. However, President Ramaphosa says there's been a notice from the US, a change of mind about participating in one shape, form or the other in the summit. Well, the White House has clarified this, saying that the U.S. will send a diplomatic delegation to the handover ceremony at the end of the summit, but will not participate in the talks.
Collectively, the members of the G20 represent 85% of global GDP, 75% of global trade, and 2/3 of the global population. For the G20 to fully live up to its mission of promoting international financial stability and deepening economic cooperation, there should be no unwritten rules about those who feast and those who must be settled for scraps. It cannot be that a country's geographical location or income level or army determines who has a voice and who is spoken down to. And it basically means that there should be no bullying of one nation by another nation. We are all equal.
Meantime, Johannesburg City appears to be ready, with security officials saying it is enforcing heightened security measures ahead of the G20 summit. Authorities say they have deployed additional police units, restricting access to routes and expanding their surveillance around key venues. Police officials have cordoned roads, conducting vehicle searches, and officers are on patrol around the city on bikes. The Metropolitan Police Department spokesperson says in terms of threats within the city, the law enforcement officials are fully prepared. Well, the G20 summit will be taking place on November 22 to 23 in Johannesburg, and it marks the first time the meeting will be held on African soil. Well, let's speak now to our correspondent in Johannesburg, Innocent Samosa. Hello, Innocent. The spotlight is on Johannesburg, South Africa this weekend. There's been a lot of expectations and, you know, events leading up to this historic meeting on African soil, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed, colleague. In fact, I was talking to my colleagues that this takes me back to 2010 when we had the World Cup here. There was just a lot of festivities. In fact, we can always call it the financial World Cup, because these are leaders of nations coming to South Africa, leaders of the G20 nations coming to South Africa to deliberate on issues that are facing nations. So it has been an interesting time. In fact, looking at delegates arriving at the OR Tambo International Airport and also at Lanseria Airport. And we do know that the security, as you rightly alluded to, there's more extra security to make sure that everything goes according to plan. But we're hearing from the presidency that no major incident so far. Those who have arrived, they arrived safely so far. Layo.
And talking about arrival, we've seen the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, you know, the leaders of Vietnam, you know, arriving to this important meeting. But one we are not sure about is the U.S. delegation. We know about President Trump, you know, saying he would not be attending. But we heard from President Ramaphosa yesterday, you know, at that social summit, saying that the U.S. perhaps has a change of mind. Help us, you know, clarify.
Yeah, but I think, Layo, if you ask me, I think President Ramaphosa has been a big brother here, because the challenge is that America kept on, saying that they want to attend, and then at the later stage they say they will send someone from the embassy who's a deputy, in that particular embassy. And Ramaphosa made it clear, President Ramaphosa made it clear that we will indeed continue to engage America, because they believe that America is one of the strategic partners when you're looking at the issues around trade, the issues around AGOA, which now it feels like it's an old news talking about AGOA. But the South African government has maintained that America is a strategic partner. So therefore, they said they'll continue to basically, engage the American delegation, their counterpart in America. But it does seem as though President Trump's administration and President Trump himself, they really made it clear that they will not attend. But the Minister of International Relations, Ronald Lamola, made it clear also that if America doesn't come, we will proceed and mark them absent, and then we go with the program. But the challenge here is that America, at this point in time, it does look like they wanted to tell us not to go ahead with the declaration. They said that they will not invite us next year in Mississippi if we continue with the declaration. So that's where we find ourselves. And this relationship, the diplomatic relationships between America and South Africa, it's further strained right now. And the question is, will it continue to be strained or will it be mended in the future? Well, that remains to be seen. But I can tell you now that South Africa is adamant that they're continuing with the G20 with or without the American delegation. But also, Layo, before I bring it back to you, the president made it clear that he's not going to, give the presidency to a deputy ambassador in Pretoria. So he said that he's not going to do that. He needs someone senior in President Donald Trump's office. So that's where we find ourselves. But it does seem as though South Africa is continuing with or without America.
And what else, is the country hoping to achieve? I mean, it's the first G20 summit on African soil, and it's a historic one for the country.
Yeah, indeed. In fact, a lot of work was done throughout the year. Like, we had more than 100 meetings. This emanate from the banks, the B20, C20, which represents civil society groups. We've got Y20 youth. We've got also W20 women in business. So these were some ourselves in a situation where some of the meetings didn't have a communique, but again, it's the work now is from the leaders. We do know that tomorrow and Sunday is just going to be a matter of ceremonial, the signing of the declaration if they do have the year.
All right then, Innocent Samosa, thank you so much, our correspondent in Johannesburg.
Thank you so much, colleague.
Well, beyond designating Nigeria as a country of particular concern, the U.S. Congress Subcommittee on Africa held a high-stake hearing on President Donald Trump's redesignation of Nigeria. Witnesses highlighted the severe insecurity challenges faced in the country, with testimonies from a Nigerian Catholic bishop, representatives of civil society groups, and a survivor of one of the incidents in Benue State, located in Nigeria's north-central region.
Hearing focused exclusively on Nigeria.
Today's sitting of the U.S. Congress Subcommittee on Africa gave an opportunity to discuss the several attacks by the terrorist groups in different communities in Nigeria.
I want to thank our distinguished witnesses for being here today to bring light and scrutiny to this unfolding religious freedom catastrophe and to proffer ways to mitigate and to end the violence and the hate.
The most touching ones are from the Middle Belt, where a Catholic bishop narrates the attacks by terrorist groups.
Thousands more have been displaced, some adopted or subjected, with entire villages razed and churches destroyed. My own village of Aondana in Gwe West local government was attacked and several of my relatives killed on May 22nd, 2025. An entire convent of Reverend Sisters of the Clarisha Parish was displaced, along with the local parish, Catholic parish. Within the days following that attack, nearby villages like Naka also witnessed attacks. In fact, on the 24th May 2025, one of my priests, Father Solomon Atongu, was shot and left to die in the pool of his blood.
The committee acknowledges that it's not only Christians that are under attack, as even the Muslim community is not spared.
Nigeria is facing multiple different security challenges in various parts of the country, including violent extremist groups in the northeast, criminal banditry in the northwest, and across the country, farmer-herder conflict in the Middle Belt, and other intercommunal violence in central and northern regions. Several factors are driving these conflicts. Yes, ethnicity and religion play a role in some cases, but other dynamics like poor governance, resource competition, climate change, and population pressures are important drivers that need to be addressed.
The lack of response has created an atmosphere of impunity where Christians continue to live in constant threat and fear.
In his testimony to the committee, Jonathan Pratt, former U.S. ambassador to Djibouti, describes the situation as complex, insisting on a more focused approach to the issues.
Terrorists, separatists, bandits, and criminal militias in Nigeria wreak havoc throughout the country, with ongoing attacks often deliberately targeting Christian communities. In addition to the violent Islamic extremism and banditry experienced in Nigeria's Middle Belt, there has been a surge in violent attacks across northern Nigeria by violent extremist organizations like ISIS West Africa, ISIS Sahel, Boko Haram, Jainim, and Al-Qaeda affiliate Ansaru, and Lakurawa. The ongoing violence is a problem of prioritization for the government of Nigeria. Although its military and police are engaged and taking significant losses in their counterterrorism efforts in the Northeast, the Nigerian government has not done enough to effectively combat violence in the Middle Belt.
This is certainly not a good time for Nigeria, but some of the members of Congress say they are optimistic on the way forward for the country.
Aid is important, and this should be for the victims of Fulani herder militia attacks, and this should be distributed through trusted local providers, including through the churches on the ground that are currently one of the main aid providers to the survivors of these attacks. And it's just, again, tragic and ironic that productive farmers now need food aid since they have been driven from their Middle Belt farms. 4, sanctions against those aiding, abetting, and granting impunity to the Fulani herder militias, including those sanctions should include high-level officials in the criminal justice system and the military. The U.S. should gather intelligence regarding official responses to the Fulani herder militias and review possible visa and Magnitsky sanctions for those aiding and abetting. The Fulani warlords' names are known or knowable. Out of all the, I think it's important to understand that out of all the violent attacks by Fulani herder militias, there have been only a few arrests.
I expect, as we're cooperating with the government of Nigeria on what those tools will be, if there is specific U.S. government programs or assistance that will require a waiver, and through agreement in our cooperative relationship with the government of Nigeria on what will be effective and successful, that we may need to seek waivers for some programs.
Strengthening the military and reforming the institutional weaknesses in Nigeria will indeed serve as a guarantee to the U.S. Congress and the government that Nigeria is serious about tackling the issue of insecurity, albeit Nigeria needs help.
United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF, has warned that more than 400 million children globally live in poverty, missing out on at least 2 daily needs such as nutrition and sanitation. The new report also states that more children are at risk of falling into poverty as global funding cuts, conflict and climate threaten access to services crucial for their health and well-being. According to UNICEF's flagship report issued on World Children's Day, more than 1 in 5 children in low and middle-income countries, or 417 million, are severely deprived in at least 2 vital areas critical for their health, development and well-being. At the same time, recent UNICEF estimates show that the cuts could leave 6 million more children out of school by next year. Well, 12 historical artifacts have been formally returned to Ethiopia after being kept by a German family for more than 100 years. The artifacts, originally collected in the 1920s by Germany's then envoy to Ethiopia, Franz Waitz, and his wife, were handed over this week to the Institute of Ethiopian Studies at Addis Ababa University. The collection included crowns, shields, and paintings, all considered culturally and historically significant to Ethiopia. Germany's envoy to Ethiopia, Ferdinand Way, says the artifacts still stand as a symbol of the long-standing and friendly relationship between both countries. And as we end the program today, here's our fun fact about the continent. Did you know the top 3 largest cities in Africa by population is Cairo in Egypt, North Africa, with an estimated population of 23 million people. Coming in second is Lagos in Nigeria, in the western region of the continent, with an estimated population of 17 to 21 million people. And in third place is Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Central Africa, estimated population of 17 million people. And that's it on the program for today and for the week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde. Have a lovely weekend.